Welcome, everyone. Today we're covering Chapter 7, Relevant Data and Business Decision Making. This is one of the most practical chapters in managerial accounting because it focuses on how businesses make decisions using incremental analysis. Instead of simply reporting costs, we'll learn how to identify which costs actually matter in a decision and which costs should be ignored. This chapter helps answer real-world questions like, should we outsource production or keep it in-house? Should we accept a special order at a discount? Should we eliminate a product line? Should we replace equipment? Should we sell a product as is or process it further? The key theme is that decision-making requires focusing only on relevant data. By the end of this chapter, you should be able to describe the business decision-making process and the concept of relevant data. Explain how a business can maximize profits when resources are constrained. Identify relevant data and calculate if a business should outsource production or the performance of services. Identify relevant data and calculate if a business should accept or reject a special order. Identify relevant data and evaluate business unit or product line performance. Identify relevant data and evaluate if a business should retain or replace an asset. And finally, describe the concept of sell or process further for single or joint product decisions. Before we dive into business decision making, let's connect this topic to real life. Making career choices involves analyzing relevant data such as job market trends, salary, job satisfaction, and personal interests. For example, a career may pay a high salary, but if job demand is shrinking or the work environment is miserable, it may not be the best choice. Businesses make similar decisions. They analyze cost structures, profitability, and resource limitations before choosing the best alternative. So the idea of relevant data applies both personally and professionally. Let's quickly review cost behavior because it will be important as we work through this chapter. Variable costs change with activity level. And also a reminder, fixed costs do not change with activity level within a relevant range. Understanding this difference is critical because many decision-making problems require us to focus on variable costs while ignoring fixed costs that do not change. Now let's start with Learning Activity 7.1. Tristan Miller charges $80 per haircut. The variable cost is $5 in consumables per haircut. Fixed rent is $750 per week. The question is, how many clients are needed monthly to break even? Pause here and work through the activity. Once you've finished, check your answers with the solutions provided in the back of Chapter 7. Now we move into Section 7.1, the business decision-making process. Businesses follow a structured process when making decisions. The goal is to avoid making decisions based on emotions, incomplete information, or irrelevant costs. Here are the 5 steps in the business decision-making process. First, define the problem. Then, determine alternatives. Next, analyze financial impact. Then make the decision, and finally, evaluate the results. This process ensures the decision is logical and supported by data. Now complete Learning Activity 7.2. In this activity, match each step in the decision-making process with the correct action. Pause here and work through the activity. Once you've finished, check your answers with the solutions provided in the back of Chapter 7. Now we introduce incremental analysis. Incremental analysis compares changes in costs and revenues between alternatives. We are not interested in total costs. We are interested in the costs that change if we choose one option over another. Incremental analysis is a core tool for decision making because it isolates what matters. Now let's introduce 3 major concepts. Relevant data includes costs and revenues that change because of the decision. Opportunity cost is the benefit we give up by choosing one alternative over another. Sunk costs are past costs that have already occurred. Sunk costs cannot be changed by the decision, so they are irrelevant. The key phrase to remember is change is the most important ingredient when deciding if cost is relevant. If the decision does not cause the cost to change, then the cost is not relevant. Now let's do Learning Activity 7.3. You are given multiple scenarios and you must determine which elements are relevant. Remember, relevant costs change. Sunk costs do not change. Opportunity costs represents benefits sacrificed. Work through each scenario carefully. Pause here and work through the activity. Once you've finished, check your answers with the solutions provided in the back of Chapter 7.